Welcome inside MetLife Stadium, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert columnist for WEEI.com, Christopher Price. After a bizarre ending, 26-20, the Jets beat the Patriots in overtime in probably the most controversial coin flip to start in overtime since the infamous Jerome Bettis call those many years ago at the Silverdome on Thanksgiving Day. Matthew Slater and Bill Belichick, the combined decision to allow the Jets to receive the ball to start overtime. The Jets marched down the field, and because it was not a field goal, it was a touchdown. The game ended right there. First and foremost, Chris, the decision, which Matthew Slater and Bill Belichick both agreed upon, was what they went with, and it was not confusion by Clete Blakeman, the referee. How do you feel about Bill Belichick giving the Jets the ball to start overtime, knowing that was a possibility?
Well, it was questionable at best, but at the same time, you look at the other side of the ball, the Patriots offense had been struggling. You felt good about where you were defensively, and you felt good about the possibility of getting a stop. But you go into overtime, and you decide to kick. The Patriots had done it once before, back in 2013, the overtime win over the Broncos, so there was some sort of historical precedent there. At the same time, in this situation, it turns out it was the wrong idea.
Yeah, and you know what? It's going to be talked about and talked about and talked about, but what's really important to understand is that the Patriots were on the same page. Matthew Slater told both of us after the game that the only confusion was which way did the Patriots get to choose to kick the ball. That was the only confusion. So when you hear Matthew Slater saying, wait, don't we get to choose, that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, this was not a situation. It's important to note this is not a situation where Matthew Slater decided to go rogue for whatever reason and decided to go against the call that was made by the head coach. He actually went back to Bill. He said he checked with him 3 and 4 times. He said, you sure this is what you want to do in this situation? Bill said, yes. That's the decision that they ended up making, and it ended up costing them in the end.
Well, what's also interesting to note is the Patriots really hadn't given up big plays. Yeah, they gave up a 35-yard touchdown on a seam route from Ryan Fitzpatrick to Brandon Marshall, who had a big day, but they hadn't allowed anybody to roam free. Bad time for that to happen, obviously. Logan Ryan, Deron Harmon, they give up the big play down the left sideline that really set the Jets up in overtime.
And look, fans, I'm not sure fans will care about this ultimately, but it's important to note that Logan Ryan really took this loss hard. We talked to him, we talked to Deron Harmon, and Deron Harmon basically kind of put his arm around his shoulder and said, look, keep your head up, we're going to need you. He took this personally. That was the phrase that Deron Harmon used to describe the matchup that Logan Ryan had going into today, going up against Brandon Marshall. He said he took it personally. It was very, very important to him. And it was difficult to see in that context, to see the emotion in the locker room on the faces of both Logan Ryan and Deron Harmon. The important thing to remember here is ultimately, and I know we're going to talk about this, we're going to write about this, this loss, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but at the same time, the Patriots still have control of their own destiny. They're still looking at a win next week against Miami, against the Dolphins. You win that game, you still got the number 1 seed.
And that is really what matters. But I think what matters even more, I shouldn't say that, is the health. And while we're talking about health, unfortunately, we've got to talk about another key piece of the Patriots offense going down to injury, and it doesn't look good. Certainly didn't look good early in the first quarter on the first series when Sebastian Vollmer appeared to get his left ankle rolled up on by Joey Josefa, and he went out of the game. Normally the Patriots say questionable to return. He was immediately ruled out. First of all, long-term implications of losing yet another stud tackle on that offensive line.
Well, what they ended up doing today was they kind of did some mixing and matching, and they had Adrian Waddle in there. They had Cameron Fleming in there before Waddle went down with a shoulder issue. We don't know what the long-term ramifications of that can be. I think it's all intertwined, for lack of a better term, when you look at the Patriots offense. The loss of Vollmer is big, and if Vollmer is gone for an extended period of time, it's a serious blow to this offensive line. At the same time, you get Gronkowski back. You have Gronkowski back to full strength. You have Edelman. You have Amendola. You can work that passing game to an extent where you can minimize some of those deficiencies, and we've seen that over the last year plus. I'm not trying to kind of soft pedal the loss of Vollmer potentially long term, but at the same time, you get those guys who are a little bit banged up. You get them back healthy. That snap to release time, that average for Brady goes down from, I'm guessing, what was it, probably 3-4 seconds today, back down underneath 2, and that's the biggest takeaway if you're a Patriots fan.
And I'm not going to make excuses for this team because, frankly, they don't need either of us to make excuses. But for the first 55 minutes of this game, this offense was in a quagmire. Their only touchdown was the scoop and score of 14 yards, I think it was, by Jamie Collins, and that was it in terms of reaching the end zone.
Yeah, and it's important to note, too, when they made the decision that they made at the start of overtime, it sounds odd on the surface, and I get it, and I know it's a questionable decision. We said it at the top of this piece, but at the same time, you feel good about where you are defensively. You look at what they were able to do over the course of the second half into the fourth quarter. It was 17-3, and the Patriots came all the way back to tie it at 20. So they allowed fundamentally a field goal there, in crunch time. So again, you feel good about where you are defensively. The Patriots, I have to believe that figured into the conversation when they were deciding whether or not to kick or accept it at the start of overtime.
In terms of guys like James White, and we've got our first look at Steven Jackson. Asked Bill Belichick about Steven Jackson after the game. We'll have to take a look at the film like he always says. He got a few touches. Didn't expect a big game from Steven Jackson. Frankly, you didn't get it.
Yeah, exactly. And coming into this game, I was surprised, frankly, how much the Patriots did decide to run the ball. I think there is, as we've said before, there's a point of diminishing returns when you go up against the New York run defense. That being said, they were able to get some good yardage between the tackles. Surprisingly, we're able to get some good yardage between the tackles. But again, I think this game was decided by the fact that the Patriots were unable to convert in the passing game when they absolutely needed to. I don't know what the final numbers were, but at one point in the fourth quarter, the Patriots were 1 for 10 on third down and 3 for 3 on fourth down. That is not a sustainable formula for success.
And that obviously has to improve come playoff time. Patriots will wrap up the season next Sunday in South Florida. Jonathan Kraft announcing before the game, the team president, that they will go to Florida on Friday. They'll have practices in Foxborough Wednesday and Thursday. Avoid the craziness on New Year's Day, Friday of the NHL Winter Classic between the Bruins and Canadiens. Head on down to South Florida and also get acclimated to the conditions of South Florida. Patriots can still finish this season 13-3. If they do, it wraps up the number 1 seed overall in the AFC. We'll have to see how the rest of the weekend plays out and how the Patriots play it in their final week of preparations, that is, for Week 17. But the final here again at MetLife in overtime, it was the Jets 26 and the Patriots 20. Inside MetLife Stadium in North Jersey, I'm Mike Petraglia. He is Christopher Price, WEEI.com.